There's a strange kind of power that no one talks about. It doesn't shout. It doesn't dominate the room. It doesn't seek approval or control. Instead, it slips away silently, like breath in the cold. Letting go. 2 small words, but they carry the weight of entire lifetimes. Okay? And perhaps no one understood this hidden strength better than Friedrich Nietzsche, man who was no stranger to pain, loss, and the slow agony of detachment. We often believe power means holding on to dreams, to relationships, to identities we've outgrown. We equate strength with endurance, with clinging, with fighting. But what if the real strength is in release? What if everything society told you about never giving up is only half the truth? What if not letting go is what's actually holding you back? The modern world teaches us to accumulate memories, goals, expectations, people, but it rarely teaches us how to mourn, how to move on, how to make peace with the parts of ourselves we've outgrown. And yet, this is where the deep transformation lies. In the space after loss, in the void after release, in the stillness after the storm. Nietzsche wrote, "One must still have chaos in oneself to be able to give birth to a dancing star." He also lived through his own chaos. His father died when he was 5. His health deteriorated early. He was rejected by the woman he loved and by the institutions he once believed in. And slowly, Nietzsche began to walk alone, quite literally and philosophically, letting go of friendships, titles, comforts, and even God himself. He called it the death of illusion. But it wasn't despair. It was a rebirth, a deep confrontation with what remains when everything else falls away. This video isn't about forgetting or suppressing pain. It's not about pretending nothing matters. It's about looking squarely at the things we cling to: relationships, beliefs, past versions of ourselves, and asking, is this giving me life or draining it? It's about understanding what Nietzsche meant when he said that to become who you are, you must first burn away everything you are not. Letting go is not weakness. It is the soul's quiet revolt against stagnation. And if done with consciousness, it becomes not an ending, but a metamorphosis. So today, we dive deep not just into Nietzsche's philosophy, but into your own psyche, into the stories you tell yourself, into the things you carry that no longer serve you, and into the fierce grace that comes with finally releasing what was never truly yours to keep. Are you ready? From the Stoics to Nietzsche, letting go as a path through chaos. To truly understand the power of letting go, we have to look beyond Nietzsche, backwards through time, across empires and philosophies, tears, monasteries, and ancient cities, because the struggle to release what weighs on the soul is as old as suffering itself. The Stoics of ancient Greece and Rome, for instance, built their entire worldview around this concept. Epictetus, a former slave turned philosopher, taught that freedom comes not from controlling the world, but from mastering our response to it. Some things are in our control, he wrote, and others are not. His teachings, echoed centuries later by Marcus Aurelius' surged detachment, not as a cold rejection of life, but as a spiritual art form, to grieve without becoming grief, to act without clinging to results, to love without fear of loss. In a world of war, plague, and political betrayal, these men saw letting go not as weakness, but as survival. Even further back, in Eastern traditions like Buddhism, the concept of non-attachment takes center stage. Siddhartha Gautama, the historical Buddha, taught that suffering arises from clinging whether to people, ideas, desires, or identity itself. In one of his earliest metaphors, he described a man crossing a river on a raft. Once he's safely on the other side, the wise thing to do is let go of the raft knot, carry it on his back for the rest of his life. But many of us do just that. We hold onto the things that once helped us: beliefs, coping mechanisms, relationships long after they've become burdens. Fast forward to Nietzsche, and you see this same ancient wisdom, but reborn through a darker, more existential lens. Nietzsche wasn't advocating for detachment in the spiritual or mystical sense. His letting go was more visceral. He saw that modern life was built on illusions, false morality, outdated religion, social conformity, okay? And he challenged us to tear those illusions down, no matter the cost. To let go, not just of attachments, but of the very foundations of how we make meaning. In his infamous declaration, God is dead, Nietzsche wasn't celebrating chaos, okay? He was mourning a loss of spiritual framework that no longer held up under the weight of modern skepticism, okay? And yet, he saw that clinging to these old frameworks only led to stagnation. Letting go, then, was not a nihilistic death spiral. It was the painful beginning of something new, space where the Bremensch, the higher self, could be born. What unites all these traditions, from the Stoics to Nietzsche, is a radical idea that peace doesn't come from getting everything we want, but from losing our need to get everything we want, from accepting impermanence, from surrendering control, from staring into the abyss and stepping forward anyway. But it's not easy. Letting go can feel like dying, okay? And in a sense, it is. It's the death of certainty, of identity, of narratives we've wrapped ourselves in. That's why we resist it. That's why we rationalize, delay, and cling. Because letting go means stepping into the unknown. Okay? And the unknown terrifies us more than misery we've grown familiar with. Nietzsche knew this deeply. He saw that modern man was drowning in comfort, but starving for meaning, okay? And he believed that meaning could only be forged through fire, through loss, through walking alone. So when we talk about letting go, we're not talking about indifference. We're talking about courage. It's a courage to say, I release this, I accept this, I begin again. This idea is not reserved for philosophers or monks. So anyone who has ever stood at a crossroads and realized that their next chapter cannot begin until they close the last one. It's for the person who knows a relationship has expired but keeps pretending. It's for the dreamer still mourning a path that didn't work out. It's for all of us who carry too much. Letting go is ancient. Letting go is sacred. And in Nietzsche's world, it's the first step toward becoming who you truly are, not who the world told you to be. The mind's clutch. Why we struggle to let go. Letting go isn't just a philosophical concept, it's a deeply psychological one. Modern psychology reveals that what we hold on to is often not the thing itself, but the story we've attached to it, the relationship we can't release. Key, it might not be the person we miss, but the version of ourselves we were when we loved them. The job we can't quit. Key, it might not be the work itself, but the fear of being seen as a failure. Letting go, then, isn't just about actions, it's about identity. From a cognitive perspective, the brain is wired to seek predictability. Certainty, even if painful, offers a strange kind of safety. This is why trauma survivors often remain in toxic relationships or harmful cycles. They're familiar. Familiarity gives the illusion of control, even when it's destroying us. The prefrontal cortex, responsible for rational decision-making, often gets hijacked by the amygdala, the brain's fear center, when we face the unknown. Letting go, to the amygdala, feels like death. So we grip tighter. Carl Jung, Nietzsche's spiritual successor in many ways, understood this well. He spoke of the shadow self, the parts of us we suppress, deny, or bury. Often, what we need to let go of lies within this shadow. Unprocessed grief, shame, ego, the need to be seen a certain way. Jung believed that until we bring the unconscious to light, it controls our lives, and we call it fate. In this sense, letting go becomes an act of individuation, the process of becoming whole. There's also a profound social element to why we hold on. In a world that equates success with accumulation, more followers, more goals, more money, letting go can feel like regression. We're conditioned to see surrender as giving up, rather than growing up. Social media intensifies this illusion. It rewards curated versions of life, not quiet revolutions of the soul. So we stay trapped in cycles that no longer serve us, because to leave them might mean being misunderstood, or worse, being alone. But this is where Nietzsche returns with sharp clarity. He believed that the path to the higher self, what he called the Bermensch, required standing outside the herd, refusing to live by borrowed values, refusing to cling to structures that numb the spirit. In today's terms, this might look like walking away from a toxic job, ending a performance-driven friendship, or choosing silence over validation, not because it's easy, but because it's necessary. Psychologically, letting go is not about weakness or passivity. It's about trust, trusting that who you are without the attachment is enough, that your worth is not defined by what you control, and that healing begins the moment you stop trying to force closure and allow life to unfold as it must. It's not just about leaving something behind. It's about returning to yourself. What we lose when we can't let go. There's a quiet cost to holding on, one we rarely measure, but always feel. It shows up in the sleepless nights where we replay conversations we'll never fix. It lingers in the background noise of our lives, where unresolved emotions ferment into anxiety, resentment, or regret. Holding on can feel noble, even brave. But over time, it becomes a form of self-betrayal, a refusal to make peace with reality. Psychologically, when we resist letting go, we entangle our identity with things that are transient controls, relationships, memories. This creates a fragile sense of self. When that job ends, or that person leaves, or that dream dies, we don't just lose the external thing, we feel like we're losing ourselves. That's because the ego has convinced us that we are what we hold on to. But in truth, our deepest self is not the things we cling to, it's the part that survives their absence. In relationships, the inability to let go can become a kind of emotional prison. We stay in dynamics long after love has faded, mistaking loyalty for aliveness. We tolerate mistreatment under the illusion of potential, or we idealize what once was, refusing to see what is. Nietzsche would argue that this is not love, it's denial. Love, he believed, must be rooted in truth, not fantasy. And sometimes, the most loving thing we can do for ourselves and others is to walk away with dignity, rather than stay out of fear. The same applies to our inner narratives. Many of us hold on to guilt, shame, or past mistakes, as if clinging to them proves we've learned our lesson. But what it often does is quietly sabotage our confidence. We shrink, we defer, we doubt. The past becomes our script, and we forget that we can rewrite the story. Nietzsche warned against becoming a passive character in one's own life, a slave to values, systems, and memories that no longer serve the evolving self. Socially, the consequences ripple outward. We become disconnected, not just from others, but from the present moment. Our attention is fractured between what we're trying to fix and what we're afraid to feel. This kind of inner noise makes it difficult to show up authentically. We perform instead of connect. We endure instead of engage. Slowly, the life we're clinging to becomes smaller than the life we could be living. Even historically, we see this dynamic play out. Empires that refused to adapt, clinging to old hierarchies and beliefs, crumbled. Cultural renaissances often began not with new inventions, but with the letting go of outdated dogmas. From the death of medieval superstition came the Enlightenment. From the fall of rigid Victorian ideals came the fluidity of modern expression. Loss, when fully accepted, clears the soil for something new, but only if we allow it. Nietzsche saw that pain was not the enemy. The refusal to evolve was. To hold on is often to resist the very process that could set us free. And the longer we resist, the more we decay inside, quietly, invisibly, inevitably. So the cost of not letting go is steep. Our peace, our presence, our potential. The moment we dare to loosen our grip, even if our hands are trembling, is the moment we begin to breathe again. How to let go. Tools for the soul's release. Letting go isn't a single moment. It's a slow, conscious unwinding. A choice made not just once, but over and over until the weight you've been carrying begins to feel lighter. And though Nietzsche rarely spoke in step-by-step formulas, his life found the lives of those who've walked similar paths offer us powerful tools for this transformation. The first and perhaps most radical step is acceptance. Acceptance is not the same as agreement. You don't have to approve of what happened to release it. But you do have to stop resisting its reality. The past cannot be negotiated with. Nietzsche taught us that amor fati, the love of one's fati, not passive surrender, but active embrace. To say, this happened, hurt, and still I will find a way to love my life through it. Psychologists call this radical acceptance, a cornerstone of dialectical behavior therapy. It's the moment you stop arguing with life and start dancing with it, even if your steps are unsure. The second practice is self-inquiry. Sit with what you're clinging to. Ask yourself, what am I really afraid to lose? Is it the person or the idea of being lovable? Is it the job or the security it represents? Often, the thing we can't let go of is protecting a deeper fear. Carl Jung might say this fear lives in the unconscious, buried beneath layers of persona and projection. Journaling, therapy, or even meditative silence can bring these truths to light. Third, ritual. Nietzsche believed that life without ritual loses its sacredness. Many ancient cultures used rituals as a way to mark symbolic transitions. Funerals, fires, fasts. You don't need a priest or a temple. Light a candle. Write a goodbye letter you'll never send. Burn the version of yourself that no longer feels alive. The mind needs closure. Sometimes the body does too. Fourth, non-attachment practices. From Buddhism to Stoicism. Non-attachment isn't about detachment from love, but from expectation. Meditative practices teach you to observe your thoughts without gripping them, to let emotions pass like clouds rather than becoming the storm. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself daily that death was certain and possessions fleeting, not to breed fear, but clarity. What would you release today if you knew tomorrow would not come? Fifth, create something new. Letting go without recreation leaves a vacuum, and nature abhors a vacuum. Nietzsche spoke of the Bermensch not just as someone who destroys, but someone who creates new values. Channel your grief, your confusion, your empty space to art, movement, service, a new habit. Build the next version of you from the ashes of what no longer serves. And finally, practice patience. Letting go is not linear. Some days you'll feel free. Others, you'll find yourself aching for what you thought you'd released. That's okay. Healing is circular, not straight. Nietzsche himself took years, decades, to distill his truth into words. He didn't rush the process, and neither should you. The goal isn't perfection, it's movement. Forward, inward, deeper. You don't have to be fearless. You just have to be honest. To say, I'm ready to carry less so I can live more. And that is how you begin. The fire that frees letting go is not about abandoning what mattered. It's about honoring what was, and no longer letting it hold you hostage. Friedrich Nietzsche understood this better than most. He lived a life filled with deep heartbreak, disillusionment, isolation, and yet, from that suffering, he forged not bitterness, but brilliance. He didn't numb the pain. He faced it. He didn't cling to what was lost. He created new meaning in its place. And in doing so, he gave us a path, not one of comfort, but of authenticity. The truth is, there is no formula for letting go that works for everyone. No perfect moment, no universal ritual. What there is the quiet voice inside you that already knows. That whisper that says, you've outgrown this. You're allowed to move on. This grief doesn't define you. Sometimes we let go by walking away. Other times, by staying but releasing our expectations. Sometimes it's dramatic, a breakup, a job resignation, a move across the world. Other times, it's invisible, A mindset we drop, a lie we stop telling ourselves, a mask we no longer wear. But every time we let go, truly let go, we are reborn. Not into someone new, but into someone truer. Nietzsche called this the path of becoming, of killing the false self so the real one can breathe. And yes, it's terrifying, but it's also liberating. You don't need to have it all figured out. You just need to start loosening the grip. One thought, one habit, one belief at a time. Because what's waiting on the other side of letting go is peace. Not the kind that comes from everything going right, but the kind that comes from no longer needing it to. So the next time you feel that tightness in your chest, that ache of holding on, pause, breathe, and ask yourself, what if the thing I'm afraid to lose is the very thing keeping me from who I'm meant to become? This is where the journey begins. If you felt something stir within you while watching this, something quiet but certain, honor it. That subtle pull toward freedom. That's not coincidence. That's your soul remembering its strength. Because here, we don't just talk about self-help. We walk with philosophy, with history, with psychology and poetry. We bring Nietzsche's solitude, Jung's shadows, gaze, and your own lived experience into one shared space for inner revolution, for emotional intelligence, for growth that's real, raw, and lasting. Letting go isn't something you do once. It's a lifestyle, a mindset, a sacred kind of bravery, okay? And it's easier when you're not doing it alone. So, if you're someone who's tired of the surface level advice, if you're craving depth, self-mastery, and a clear sense of who you are becoming, this channel is for you. Here, we explore what it means to reclaim your personal power, not through domination, but through understanding. Through the courage to release, reframe, and rebuild. Every video here is crafted with care, lending timeless wisdom in modern psychology, personal reflection, and collective truth. Whether it's Nietzsche or Jung, spiritual trauma or silent transformation, we're peeling back the layers, one by one. If that speaks to you, join us. Subscribe, not just to a channel, but to a journey inward. A journey toward a self that's lighter, freer, and more whole. Because life isn't about clinging to every broken piece. It's about becoming the kind of soul that can let go, still shine. So take a breath, let something go even if it's just a thought, and then come walk with us. This is where the real transformation begins.